is the November 19th meeting of the Flood Prevention, Climate Resilience, and Erosion Control Board, or FIRB for short. Present are Becky Bunnell, Chair. If we could go around and just confirm for the recording who is here.
Dick Mahusky, I'm Secretary.
John Dilley.
Charles Abercrombie.
Carolyn Camlet, a resident.
And
Prue O'Brien, Recording Secretary.
Okay, thank you all. Do we have anyone else on the line?
No, we do not appear to have anyone else on the line at this time.
All right, then we'll move on. We will call the meeting to order and move to our first action item, which is to hear, consider, and act upon the minutes of the September 17th meeting. Did anyone have any comments or suggestions?
I have one question. On the second page, the second to last bullet point says Rolling River Marsh, using a mosquito ditch machine but waiting list for machine. I'm not familiar with the Rolling River Marsh. What did we mean? Mill River Marsh?
Oh, maybe
Rooster
it was Mill
River?
River.
We were talking about the Reef Road, I thought, weren't we? And about, was that in the context of the being able to cut down the Phragmites and the marsh between Reef and Rolling?
Reef Road Marsh.
It was probably good. Reef Road Marsh is what we.
Oh, sorry, I was probably auto-corrected. Geesh.
Yeah, it was autocorrect.
Reef Road Marsh. Okay.
That's the only comment I have.
Did anyone else have any comments?
No.
All right, hearing none.
I would make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you all. We will now move on to our item number.
Actually, before we leave minutes, can I just raise a question? Dick distributed April, May, and June edited minutes. Are we supposed to be doing something with them?
They just have to be updated.
They were all approved. They need to be updated on the website, right, Prue? We wound up being all current except for the September meeting.
I believe so. I'm going to go through it again, though. It made me think about going through all my committees.
Yeah, because what happened was I was looking on the website for the minutes to make sure that we were all current, and there were still some drafts there, and a couple were not even posted. Right. But we had I believe we had approved them all at various meetings.
That's why I didn't know whether we needed to.
So Prue was going to triple check that, but I think if we're not yet perfect, we're darn close to it.
Okay.
We are. Darn close, I mean.
Darn close.
Darn close. All right, then I'm now moving on to the item number 2, which is the comments on our new name, composition, webpage updates as authorized by the town ordinance by the RTM on October 28th. So,
right.
Dick.
So I had sent around. I talked to Jen Carpenter, and she agreed that she will make the updates for us. So I sent around a marked up copy of what appears on our homepage presently, and I think that does what we need to do. I changed some phrasing around a little bit, but basically I took the language verbatim from the state statutes that give us our responsibilities and powers.
So under the function, that came right out of the state statute, that language?
That language, what you see there was in black. That's what is there today.
That's what we have in ours, but the amendment, the edits came...
No, these edits they're all my edits. In most cases, I use the language directly from the state statutes. This under function, I just did that on my own.
Okay. I admit that I was in meetings all day and I did not get a chance to check the state statutes. So why don't we take other people? I mean, I have minor comments. I did skim it quickly, and the only really minor comment that I had, I think, was on the new version of the board members. I'm actually unaffiliated. I am not a D. I'm a U.
Okay.
That's how you're reflected on the website, by the way.
As a you?
Mhm.
Oh, I am, okay.
Yeah.
No, because this is what they did before, I have not yet sent this to Jennifer, but somebody changed our membership on the website. This is a screenshot from today, from our website.
Maybe it was Dick that was you, maybe you.
No, I'm a you.
Yeah, you were the you,
Yeah.
sorry, that was my bad.
I am
So-
now,
so that's how-
I am
that's how
technically
you-
a you.
Okay.
I switched from a D to a U.
So, I will make that change before I send it to Jennifer.
But I would like, I would like a chance just to kind of quickly read through the town, or the state statute.
Yeah,
And
no,
just, review the language that you're proposing versus the state statute.
That's fine, well, I mean, we
Only
can
'cause I-
table this until next month.
I just didn't get a chance. Well, it'd be nice to actually make these edits. I mean, maybe what we do is we make these edits, and then we could make minor edits if I had any substantive changes. I didn't have any other real issues, it's just that I wasn't sure why you took out flood and control systems in the function and mitigated storms.
Well, flood and erosion control system is, in my version, resilience measures. Manages the town's resilience measures to mitigate the effects of storms.
Because part of the biannual report that we have to do is to make a listing of all of the flood and erosion control structures that we manage and oversee.
Right.
And they use that language, I believe, flood and erosion control structures. That's just why I was wondering, I just wanted to make sure that we're being consistent. But I honestly, I need to spend a little more, I apologize, I just really didn't
Why
have
don't
it.
we just table it till next month?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
We could call a special meeting by telephone only.
I'd be fine with that. Even a couple days from now, I just honestly was in meetings all day and haven't had a chance, so.
Becky, why don't you
Why don't we?
get
you have to
your
take
comments
24
together?
You have to have
and
24
then-
hours and call a special
Yeah,
meeting.
and then
So,
post a special meeting, we
okay,
can do it by phone.
I'll send an email around asking for times
Date
that we're all
time, yeah.
available, and then I can do it.
Yeah, we just need to be 24-hour notice.
Did anyone else have any comments?
No.
And the other thing they did, on the new listing, they have the dates staggered, so that no more than 2 will term off at any year. And then they took the alternates 1, 2, 3 and staggered those over 3
That's
years.
good, that's what they should
So the
have
first one is 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years. And then for the 2 new members, one is listed for a 4-year term and the other for a 5-year term. Because that way only 2 will go off in any year. Because my replacement is now to 29.
Okay,
So 29 and vacancy number 7 will go off at the same time. And then 28, which is Chuck, 28 and the vacancy number 6 will go off at the same time.
okay,
So that satisfies that requirement.
okay, perfect. All right, anything else on item number 2?
No?
Okay, let's move on to item number 3, which is an update and discussion on the status of active projects. Let me read out what Bill Hurley was able to send through quickly. On Perry's Green, the contractor is wrapping up, and by next week, we should be finished, is what he's saying.
By next week, they got
That's
an
what-
awful lot of grading and stuff to move
That's
off
what
site.
he's saying.
Well,
Now,
I don't know what
interestingly
finished means, I don't know what the
They need
definition of finished.
substantial completion.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's,
And Dick had sent around a visual.
Yeah, I
of
took a
what happens
snapshot
during
Sunday.
a flooding situation, which just reinforces the fact that we had asked for it to be raised
Yeah,
by a foot, and we're
I
not
know.
able to get that through, and it's unfortunate because it really would have helped if we had been able to do that, but so be it.
Yeah, I reviewed that, and I only had the one question when you were delineating between the 2 areas of concrete, but that's not an agenda item, I'll just ask you about mine afterward.
Okay, on the Turney Creek, tide gate replacement, the contractor is installing the coffer dam and started demolition of the bridge and culvert.
Coffer dam is completed, the bridge deck is 90% gone. They just have one little strut left to take out. I went by there today to look. And I think it appears that the sewer rerouting pipe is all in place, and there's 4 pumps there ready to go, 2 electric pumps and 2 diesel pumps, so it looks like they're ready to go.
In good shape, okay. South Pine Creek Tide Gate, the contractor has installed the coffer dam, it's almost complete. The trusses have been removed, and they will start culvert construction soon. I think you actually were at the site.
Yeah, I found it interesting that they took the old railroad bridge and they picked it up in one piece and moved it way far into the parking lot, so it's sitting there in one piece.
The historical one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably how they got it there in the first place too, right?
I don't know.
And the intent is to take parts of it.
Oh, really?
We were
Well,
asked
the
by
intent is to take the 2 main struts and mount them on new concrete piers over in the open space area, like right before you get to the
presumably
dike.
some plaque that will showcase why we are calling this historical and saving it. I hope. Otherwise, it's just going to be 2 struts on some concrete.
Exactly.
It doesn't make much sense.
Exactly. Choose your own adventure. Interpret it as you will.
All right, Rooster River update. They've addressed the comments in the permit review, and they're awaiting Army Corps final approval. It was determined that the SEPA will not be required, which is really good news. That was the conservation analysis that basically would have put us back for almost a year if we had to go through that process. So that is very good news. The Commerce Drive Bridge received state approval, and now we are working with the utilities. I don't have any update on the McLeavey or the Riverside Creek tide gates, and I don't have any update on tide gate repair inventory and planning, but I have a comment to make later on in the new business section on that. So that's all I got from Bill on project updates. I can give a quick update on Penfield, because Bill had given an update in the FBRA meeting, which was news because it's not posted on the website, but it was great news. Apparently we have done 100% remediation of all of the contaminated soils. We are 90% completed on doing all of the piles, and we're just working on some of the toppers for the piles right now, and we're absolutely on track then to, we're starting reconstruction of the decking at this point where possible, and we've put the fill all back under the locker side, and we will be putting the fill back under the main building to the 8 feet level. So progressing on track for that. I don't have any other updates.
No, the fill's going back. Maybe middle of last week, early last week, they only had a couple of the supports to replace. Most of the supports are in place with their permanent struts coming up from the concrete pile caps. Okay. So it's looking good.
So any questions or updates on key projects? We will do an update on the master plan later in the agenda. And the Penfield Resiliency.
On the 8 feet was FEMA wanted?
That was FEMA's request. Yeah. And that was the actually town FEMA agreement.
Right.
I'm not sure. FEMA's actual written request was to the elevation it was depicted in prior photos, which was 8 to 9 feet, but the town FEMA agreement was 8. Okay. So the next is Penfield Beach Resiliency Project. So this was the $100,000 project that Brenda had authorized that would add resiliency to Penfield Beach. This is on hold completely as a project until the notice of violation has been completed. So there's no major update at this point, but hopefully, since we seem to be on track for Penfield remediation, that was targeted to be completed in the spring of 2025. So if we're still on track for that, and hopefully FEMA will be quick with their, I don't know what you call a elimination of notice of violation, there's probably a word for it.
Yeah. They're gonna clear the violation. They're going to clear the violation.
Once that has been done, we will be able to restart this project and go back and look at this, and complete it. Because the steps that were not done on this is, presumably we'll go back and relook at the modeling, but, as part of this project, we were gonna be looking at, 3 to 4 resilience options that would have given us protection from some sort of storm for the neighborhood behind it. And that still is to be done.
Full-time or temporary, protection?
We offered the option for them to look at both. The verbal discussions were that beach nourishment, it was probably the lead idea of beach nourishment and a non-structural dune in front of the pavilion would be the lead option. And they thought that should be approved by DEEP and FEMA, but that was a verbal discussion as opposed to a formal recommendation.
Who thought that would?
Devin thought that would be approved by FEMA and presumably by DEEP. But again, we have not done the work. The work is to give us 3 to 4 options that we can evaluate with preliminary costings. Any other comments or questions on Penfield's resiliency? All right, let's do an update on the 2024-25. We'll now call it the 2024/2025 master.
Yeah, I think
climate resilience.
when you all have your kickoff meeting, I think it really should be changed to 2025 because unless you're going to get it complete in the next month, it's going to be done and released in 2025, and it's a nice 10-year gap from the 2015.
Right. We may change the name of it when it's finally done, but I kind of just want to keep the 2024 in because we did start it back. We actually asked Brenda for this back in 2023.
So that's all
when we started asking for one. I'm not asking it to be called the 2023 one.
Hi, this is Prue. Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It is RFP number 2025-13.
Yes.
13.
I had that comment to make. On the agenda, item number 5, it references RFP 2025-17. That is incorrect. It is -13 as our recording secretary so aptly noted.
Thank you, Prue.
You're welcome.
All right, so we did actually have several applicants for this, and those applicants have come in to a review committee and had interviews. And at this point, we are not in a position to say which is the winning until the administration has made a final call on this, but there is a lead candidate. And the next steps are for the lead candidate to be brought forward to a special meeting of the BOS. I don't think we were able to get in front of tomorrow's BOS meeting, so they're planning on calling a special meeting. This will have to go through the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM, because apparently, and my mistake if I'd mentioned before, I thought these were coming from ARPA funds, but apparently they're not. They're bonding funds, so they do have to be approved by all 3 bodies. But that all will presumably be done over the course of the next several weeks, because the intent is to move this forward and award the job in this fiscal year, or this calendar year.
So the funding has to be identified and approved by the 3 bodies.
Correct.
And then after that funding is approved, then purchasing can award the contract.
Correct.
And the contract has to only come back before the Board of Selectmen because it will be more than $10,000.
Prue, is that correct? Or I was assuming that both the funding and the proposed,
No, because we can't award it until we have the additional funding. So once the additional funding is approved, then we can award it contingent upon it being, that the contract is approved by the Board of Selectmen, and then we can start.
Okay, so it has to go through Selectmen, Finance, RTM, Selectmen.
Right.
Well, just the funding. Then the contract only has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen.
And the contract, there has to be a written contract then, because this was just a proposal. So the contract, how long does the contract take to draw up?
Not any time at all. It's pretty quick.
Okay.
It's a pretty standard contract. So, I don't know if Adam will use the standard contract or if he's going to use an engineering contract. But it's pretty standard.
Okay. This is predominantly an engineering project. Would this not? I'll
it's up to them.
However
whatever
wants to do it. So that's the next step. So the good news is we have a lead applicant, and we have, according to the group today, we have the funds available to be reallocated to this. So that is all very good news. Any questions?
Actually, you just said funds. We're just talking about bonding now. I'm confused.
My understanding is that these were going to be paid out of bond funds that had already been requested, but I might have misheard that.
No, the funding has already been approved, but it did go over what the budget was, so that's what they're going to have to get approved. And I think they're looking into getting ARPA funds for that, which is why they're going to do a special meeting.
So they are looking to get ARPA funds. Well, there was in the capital and planning budget, there was $100,000 for something, which I don't know where that ever came from, for a flood mitigation plan, and then there was another $250,000 for some sort of flood mitigation plan in a different fiscal year. So I assumed that those two were being rolled up to.
Yes, they had $350,000, but the bids came in higher, both of them. So, and then they have to put in contingency. So I believe they're going to go for ARPA funds for the difference.
Okay.
And since the ARPA has to be, it has to be, allocated, then that's why they're doing the special Board of Selectmen meeting.
Right, because that has to be allocated in this calendar year.
Yes. It has to be allocated, I believe, before December 1st.
30th.
I thought it was the 30th.
I think it's the 30th.
Okay, I don't know if it had to be spent by the 30th, like actually, all right.
It had to be committed. I thought it had to be committed as in the signed contract.
All right, that's probably right. But it's still, they need to do it quickly, so.
Yes, there is emergency. All right, any other questions on this?
No.
All right, let's move on to preliminary meeting dates for 2025, which Dick has pulled together. Thank you, Dick.
Mm-hmm.
I have it already.
Me too. So I looked at the calendar, and the third Tuesday seems to have no conflicts with Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day, Easter, so forth. So, to me, these dates all falling on the third Tuesday all seem reasonable. We do not have to act on this today. This needs to be acted on in the December meeting and the regular meeting dates sent to the town clerk by the end of January. But we historically have done this in December, and in December we select the officers of the Flood Prevention, Climate Resiliency, and Erosion Control Board.
So,
did I get that right?
Yes. So if anyone wants to step up, Dick, we're going to say a formal thank you in December, although I believe he's going to be able to stay on till January until we have replaced his spot.
until they replace my position, I can hold over until it's like 65 days after the third Monday in November or something. So it's basically the end of January.
But unfortunately, he has served 2 terms, and you cannot serve more than 2 terms without taking a year off. So he will be stepping down, and if anyone wants to put their name in for secretary or president or vice president, let me know, and we'll see about voting on that.
Hold your breath.
Vice chair. It's
Vice chair.
It's chair,
Vice chair.
chairperson and vice chair.
And we will talk about nominating that for December. But Dick, I think we'll have to have a little party for you, because you have served so well for all this time, and we.
No, I'll just be like MacArthur.
I'll bring some.
I'll be like MacArthur. I'll just fade away. Well, maybe I won't fade away. Maybe I'll put in my 2 cents now and again.
We come show up as a resident.
Okay.
Exactly. Residents are
We
welcome.
can do public comment.
Now, as part of what we'll also be talking about.
Strike that from the record, please.
As part of what we'll also be talking about in December is we are expanding our board, as Dick mentioned before, from 5 members to 7. So we are looking for 2 additional members, and we're looking for 3 alternates. So right now, there are 2 people who are interested that I'm aware of to join the board. I have been asking around trying to get an engineer, because I really believe we need an engineer on this board. And a guy named Greg Pidlewski, who lives in Fairfield and is the city engineer for the town of Milford, has expressed some interest. I'll be talking with him later this week. I briefly talked with him at the Connecticut Flood Managers Connecticut Association of Flood Managers, and he seemed like he would be open to it, so I'll just have to talk with him and explain what we do, and hopefully he's still interested. And another person who had put his name forward in the spring was Dr. Gary Romeo, who is a resident of the floodplain area, and I think he's on the FBRA as well.
And he had attended a few of our meetings in the past.
Yeah.
So he is.
And he is very interested. He was particularly interested in the Penfield issues, but in talking with him, he said that he really wants to take a whole town approach, which he would really need to if he was going to join this board. And then we welcome other people who might want to join either as full members or as alternates.
Carolyn.
I did submit.
You did submit?
Okay, very good.
Okay, so we might have Carolyn.
Alternate 2.
Alternate 2.
I figured 1 year wasn't quite enough to know if I could really help. To be much more than, so.
So if anyone knows of anyone who would like to be on it, can you flag that name to me and to Bill and maybe sound them out? Tell them about this 2024-25 plan, which I think should be an exciting time to be on the board. And we'll go forward from there. We'll also relist it in the first selectman, which I think we had been on originally, and then we dropped off, and I think we need to get ourselves. I've asked to be relisted.
I thought it was in the last one, maybe.
I think I've seen it in most of them.
I thought we dropped off one time, and then I asked for it.
There was still no.
I think you and I talked about that. There was like an interim news blast that he sent out, which wasn't the regular bi-weekly newsletter. Yeah.
And but it also still notes seeking riverine experience as well.
Right.
We could probably use one more riverine, to be honest. We have a lot of floodplain. I really feel it.
I mean, Rooster River. We need someone up there where the Rooster River floods.
Yeah. So I think engineering and riverine experience are our 2 lead things that we would want, or maybe not even engineering, but more technical. I mean, someone who's able to look at drawings. I mean, I have an architecture degree, but that's not necessarily an engineering degree. It's different.
Do we know anybody from that Rooster River area there?
I tried to look back through some of the lists we had of meetings that were held in the Rooster River area, and I thought we had lists of attendees for meetings, and I couldn't find.
You know who may?
I think that's around.
As part of something that she was doing in Bill River, Cato Mahoney was going to those meetings and talking to people. She may have a sense of who might be a good advocate for that area.
Okay.
So I can always ask her if she knows of anybody in.
If you can, if there's someone who's particularly vocal and interested.
She was bringing it back to the Mill River meetings, from time to time and putting it on the agenda and just giving us updates about what they were saying.
Oh, that'd be great.
In those meetings, so that might be helpful.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to move on to our last agenda item? All right, to hear, consider, and act upon any other business which may properly come before the board. So I have a couple new items to review. One item is a possible intern that would help us prepare some of the information we're going to need for our, as background information for our consultant for the master plan. This is a guy who is a current senior at Ward High School, very much into the math and sciences, wants to be a environmental engineer, very interested in hydraulics, and attended actually a meeting with John and myself in New Haven this week to talk about bioswales. And he is very interested in volunteering his time as an intern on some projects which would be beneficial for him, but also help us get some background information which we're going to need to be able to give to our consultants. So I've prepared a list of background information. I think I have enough.
I have it. I read it and I printed it.
You did?
Yep.
Did you?
I have this,
You have that too? Okay.
you know,
You have, all right. So the reason I put this together is not just for the intern, but also for those of us on the board. I thought if you were particularly interested in one of these areas, these are the things we need to pull together in order for our consultant to be able to do the job they need to for the master plan. The first one, and this is actually less about the consultant, it's a little bit about the consultant, but the piece we're going to need for the consultant is a very detailed map of all of the areas that have flooded in town. And so we thought that presumably the intern, Misha, could look at and work with the engineering department and pull together this map of all the areas that have been flooded, particularly the areas that have flooded outside of the traditional special flood hazard area, because that's what we saw in Rooster River. We saw the flooding go beyond what FEMA would have delineated as the flood areas. But then the other piece of this is that we now have this new, and I'm not sure what we're calling it, I just said Conservation Educational Center, but I'm not sure if we have a name for it yet.
We don't.
What?
Yeah, I'm not aware that we do.
But, you're aware that we've purchased a property up near the Mill River.
It's been approved.
Yeah, it's been approved.
No, the sale went through and, yeah.
And the intent is to have it be a townwide educational center. And one of the things that we'd like flood and erosion to have is some information about flooding and erosion, obviously, but particularly like to have actually a bioswale on the site so that people and residents can understand what is a bioswale, why should they want it. And bioswales cost anywhere from $10,000 to $14,000 to build. So I would envision that first, the first part of this project would be to get a detailed flood map and work with the engineering department to kind of lay out, where might bioswales be applicable. Mega has had a lot of experience in bioswales, so she could be helpful. And then to explore grant funding to build a bioswale in this new center, which I think we can get from Connecticut Sustainable CT, and then create language and propose language for signage that would explain what is a bioswale and why should you care, and then start to explore donations of plants and construction materials so that we can maybe reduce the cost a little bit. So that's kind of one potential project, which I don't think we need. We could have a member of our board oversee this intern if that's something that you guys, if someone has some interest in, or we could just have him work directly with engineering to pull some of this stuff together. But in any case, I think one of us should probably be overseeing him on this just because he'll have questions. The next area is in order to do a proper analysis of the financial impact of a do-nothing scenario, we need to understand which houses have been elevated, because obviously if a flood comes through and you had no elevated houses, all of those houses would see substantial damage. If you have a bunch of half elevated houses and half unelevated, you're going to have much less damage because all of the elevated houses will have minimal, if any, damage. So in order to do a proper do-nothing scenario, we really need to look at the 3,000 structures in our floodplain and do a mapping. And I've been working with a guy named Mark Hoover at Metrocog, who has prepared a GIS mapping thing that could be on your phone.
Yeah, an app.
It's an app, yeah. And you can go around and basically drive through the neighborhoods and say, 79, yes, elevated. 81, no, elevated. Yeah.
Don't reinvent the wheel before you talk to Emmeline Harrigan. I think she has a list some.
There was a list that was done 2.5 years ago.
The other thing I would note.
Woefully out of date.
Okay, the other thing I would note is that if we're going to use this for some kind of ranking of susceptibility, there is a pre-2013 FEMA compliant house and a post-2013 FEMA compliant
That's
house.
what Chris Dow did.
And they differ by 1 foot.
Okay, yeah, Chris Dow had actually pulled, because in the GIS mapping database, I believe you can tell what year the house was built. And I don't know if you can tell if it was renovated that date, but you can definitely tell if a house was built after that date in the GIS mapping. So he was actually using that. When he started this project, he did about a quarter of the project, and then unfortunately was not able to complete it. This was our intern from UConn. So it needs to be finished and probably started over. But he was using that database to do that. And it was able to tell him houses built after a certain date. I thought it was 2014, but maybe it was 2013.
What changed was on July 7th, 2013, the new FEMA maps were approved, changed the datum by 1 foot, 1.1 foot actually, changed the datum. So something that was, and it was more stringent, so something that was compliant in 2012, let's say, in 2013, it was just compliant in 2012. In 2013, it was 1.1 foot lower than it needed to be 2013 FEMA compliant.
So we'll probably need to give him some guidelines because I think the intern expressed an interest in doing these first 2 projects. But I think I would hypothesize that a FEMA compliant 2012 home and a 2014 home would both suffer minimal
similar risk. Yeah.
Similar risk.
Yeah, I would think
I'm not sure I would differentiate between those necessarily. And I think some of the challenge is going to be he can't just use that data in the GIS mapping. He has to actually physically look at the houses because it could be that it didn't get noted as a new construction because it was a renovation. And I'm not sure renovations were captured in that database. But anyway, so the objective here would be, and again, this is something the intern had expressed an interest in doing, and I'm having a follow-up conversation. But we would have Mark Hoover train him on this app, and then he would drive around the floodplain and basically fill this all in. And then, and I do think we should work with Emmeline on this too. This would be someone where we'd sort of gut check it with Emmeline, and then work with a tax assessor to create evaluations for the different scenarios.
Sitting with the field cards might be more efficient than driving around because some of the, especially as you get to the fringes of the floodplain, like my street's at 6 feet. If you get to the fringes of the floodplain where the street elevation is 9 feet, you still have like 2 feet to go, and it might not be obvious whether that's compliant or not compliant. You know what I mean?
But doesn't the GIS database give you the elevation? Doesn't the GIS database give you the elevation for each house? I mean, at that site?
I mean, it'll give you the ground elevation.
Exactly, yeah. So he can then take that and make an educated assessment whether 5 steps.
Okay, well, those are details that need to be fleshed out.
But so I think there should be some guidelines that would help him. But yeah, I think we can give him some general guidelines. The next one we may not need because it sounds like the 2 firms we had, both that we brought in, and particularly the one that we're likely to go with, actually has a very good handle on temporary flood control structures, inventory, and preliminary costing. So I'm not sure this is actually necessary anymore. But the idea here was really just to create a matrix of all of the currently in use temporary flood control structures, a report on their costs, the contacts that we would reach out to, the pros and cons of each, and any sort of references in terms of what issues people faced when actually using them in flood situations. So I'm not sure we need this one anymore, but I'll just confirm with Bill Hurley whether he feels like the firm, if they're already doing this and we're paying for it, we don't need to have the intern do that one. The next one I think, Dick, you're doing, but I need to confirm that you
yes,
still going to be able to get that done. So this is a critical one that needs to be done within the next couple weeks, because as soon as we award the job, they're going to want to go onto our database. And in our RFP, we probably listed about at least 15, maybe even 20 prior studies, as well as links to reports like the MetroCog Hazard Mitigation Plan and the Connecticut State. There were several other sort of plans that we would link to. And all of that needs to be collected on one place on the website so that we can easily tell the consultant, okay, kickoff meeting, here it all is, download it all, let's go.
Not the thumb drive.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could create a thumb drive for them too, but it actually should be listed. Because these are all things that I think, and I know Dick's been working on it, so do you feel like you have the resources to get this done within a week or two?
Yes.
Okay. The next area is, I know that some towns, particularly in Massachusetts, have what I'd call optional, or there's probably another word they use. These are not mandatory increased building standards, but these are higher level building standards that is mandated by the state for flood and wind in particular, so that if someone wanted to really, storm-proof their house, they could work with their builder to put these kinds of things in place. So maybe a tougher type of roof strapping, or, if you did this, it would prepare against, this would be 120 mile an hour wind. If you did this, it's 150 miles, and this one's only 70. We don't have that as an option for our residents, and I think we should. I think we should look at what other states have done and then work with our building department to prepare this optional set of building standards so that people who are doing renovations or building new have the option to spend a little more money, because it doesn't cost much more if you're doing it at the construction stage, and it costs a lot more if you do it in the retrofit stage.
When we renovated our home, we were required to update the drawings to include it up to 110 miles an hour, I think it was. Yeah. That's the standard. Yeah. So that was a requirement, but giving them the data to be able to make a decision to go higher than that would not be a bad.
At least they have a choice.
Yeah, you give them a handout and walk them through it. And,
exactly, and it's optional. We're not mandating it, but it's a service that we would provide to the residents, which I think would be absolutely worth it. So that would really just be, looking at what other towns and states have done. The next thing that I think is really important is I think we probably did not put enough public information meetings into our RFP. The two contractors came back with only 2 public information meetings, and I don't think that's anywhere near enough. So I think we're going to need probably 2 before we even kick off the project. And then once we get the inundation maps back, we're going to need another 2. Then once we get the drawings back, we'll need another 2. I think there's probably a series of 6 to 8. So I do think that someone either on the board, I'm not sure we want to necessarily have the intern do this, but maybe Dave Murphy could really help us pull together these information meetings. I think we should over-communicate with our residents versus under-communicate, and I think that we would be really remiss in only doing 2 public meetings. And then the last thing I had on here is really just something more for us to know as a board, but I also think this should be captured in our master plan. I have never seen, and I know Tim Bishop is probably pulling this together because I don't think we've ever done it before, a tide gate maintenance structure. I mean, how often do we go out and check to see if there's debris in them? How often do we do updates to them? Do we have a schedule of repair and updates for the tide gates? Same thing with catch basins. How often do we clean out our catch basins? We get complaints all the time with people down in the beach area that there's too much debris in them and that's causing some of the flooding. This should be something that we have as a town on a regular basis, and something that's easily accessible and updatable. The town of New Haven has this done in a GIS database where you can click on a map and you can see every tide gate, every catch basin. You click on it, it shows you the last time it was updated, the last time it was cleaned. I mean, they have it done really, really well, and then you can do analysis to understand, okay, this one needs to be cleaned 3 times a year because it gets clogged too often. This one can only needs once a year, and so you can actually plan your maintenance schedules around.
Well, that to me, that's one of the benefits of establishing a stormwater authority, because if you establish a stormwater authority, you recognize that this is an ongoing, continual need to keep these things ready to convey the stormwaters whenever they pop up, because you can't say, okay, we're gonna have a storm tomorrow, go out and clean the 14 catch basins. It's just not a workable, dependable plan.
Well, we will be, in the RFP was evaluation of a stormwater authority.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying, I think that's an important thing.
This is something I think we should work with our town departments to get now, and I suspect there is neither a maintenance schedule or a repair schedule.
Yeah, I don't know about repair schedule. I remember Tim saying, when we were talking to him one morning, something about, now that we have the inventory,
His plan is to put together this.
Yes. And I think it was also to consolidate ownership of all of them versus it being split between different departments inside the town government. But
I heard him say that he was gonna oversee the master, but DPW would still be doing some of the maintenance.
Yeah, was that right?
He would be doing some of the maintenance for others, which doesn't, so long as there's a master plan.
Yeah.
So I think part of this is talking with him, but I don't think that was more the tide gates and flap gates. I don't think he was doing catch basins.
That might be, catch basins I would expect are purely public works.
DPW.
That's what I would guess too.
Yeah.
So based upon.
I know, there's a lot more of them.
Oof.
There's all, because it would be all around town.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd ask you guys, you don't need to say it now, but if you guys would want to, as Flood and Erosion Control Board members, take on any of these, could you have a think about which one interests you, which one you find that would be, an area where you can, add value to both not only the plan. Some of these are very specific to the 24, 25 plan. Other these are just things we should, as a board in a town, know.
Key projects.
Yeah. So if you know right now that you have an interest in one of them, let us know. If you want to think about it, we could, I'm going to put this on the agenda for our December meeting again.
I mean, there's a couple of others.
Yeah.
And the only one I didn't put on, and it's actually more of a legal issue that I was going to see if you had any interest. I mean, I always wonder, what is our obligation as a town to our residents to protect them from flooding, if any? And is there any
precedents? Around being held liable for flooding occurring. Keep maintaining an unsafe condition.
I mean, could someone sue us?
I mean, I would think that's just under the town that has appointed us to do this.
So if they could sue the town, they could sue us. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying they can sue us through the town.
Through the town, yeah.
Oh, us, the Flood and Erosion Control Board?
Yeah. Or are you talking as a town?
I was talking about as a town.
Oh.
Board.
You have insurance?
I don't have personal insurance.
Yeah. See, that's why you have to, definition of terms, who is us?
Who is us?
Pogo.
Just make two comments on this. One, I met this intern. I was supremely impressed with his energy, his knowledge, his interest, everything. I really was. The only thing I would say is a lot of these things are going to happen over time, and he is waiting for his college acceptances to come back.
Yeah.
Right?
He's only here. We only have until May. I mean, maybe we get him in the summer.
Maybe through the summer. Maybe. I was thinking, but you might get him to August, but he's looking at schools.
Oh, he's going. Yeah.
He's either going to Rensselaer, he's going to University of Washington.
Right.
So he's so we maybe have 8 months of his time.
And this is all unpaid, or is this?
I told him it was unpaid.
Yeah.
I don't have any funding.
And then the second piece of it is, I've already talked to Becky about this. My son's graduating in May, and I may be looking for him to do something unpaid in the environmental realm. And he has an environmental engineering degree, or he will.
He will.
Everybody knock, please. But he will have an environmental engineering degree. And so he's studying about some of these things right now. And this would be terrific, just like it would be for Misha, to have this experience in his background. So he'll be home by June 1st.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a handoff there.
That could be perfect.
Something like that. But I just wanted to offer that up. Put that on the
Well, the two that Misha, and I talked about were the bioswale and the GIS mapping. The GIS mapping, honestly, if he downloads the app and gets trained on that, could be done within a month or so.
Yeah.
So that can absolutely be done before he graduates. The bioswales, he could do a lot of the work, but and he can apply for the grant. It may not be constructed before he leaves, just because things take time.
Oh, we haven't even finished. So at the facility, they've gone through and they've cleared away, the invasives, and now we can see the parking lot. There is a parking lot and a driveway with the two plots. They've cut down some trees, and they've located where the sewage is, and they've worked with UI to map out how they're going to reposition the power utility poles so that the school buses that come in for the Mill River trips can make the turns. Because it's a speedway there on Sturgis, right where that little V is, and that's where the buses are going to pull out. So they're also looking at the traffic study there. First Selectman Gerber told me that they're already looking at that from a traffic pattern. So they're at the very, very early stages of that process. But they seem to think the facility, they're targeting having it available by, the spring, as they say, at least, to start to really do things, but, having the basic systems in place. And I was telling Becky yesterday, like they put the place was not heated, so they had to put an oil tank in there and so they could heat it through the winter, so the pipes on this brand new investment didn't freeze, while we evaluate, or where everybody evaluates, what the right power source is, what the right heating source is, the cooling source is, all that types of stuff, the insulation stuff, what we do on the roof, all that stuff. It's a neat little facility, and I think we can do something very special there as a town. But we want to use it as a showcase. And so Tim is working on the basics now with DPW and his crews. But I think the bioswale being constructed by that time might be aggressive, but...
It might be aggressive, but I mean, it could be planned. We could get the grant money, we could get...
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, he could do a lot of grant work.
And that bioswale would be a showcase type of...
Yes.
Yeah, well, it would be a functional bioswale, assuming there's enough of a pitch.
You're 30 feet from the river, so...
There's a pitch... There's a pitch we were talking about this yesterday. When you're on Sturgis, there is certainly a pitch down to the home, and then from the home behind it down towards the marshland, which leads into the Perry's Mill open space, and then out to Perry's Mill Pond. What kind of functionality and flow you're going to get there? You might get a decent flow. If you position it around someplace smart on the property, you might get a flow to be able to show something. But you have to come and walk the ground.
I should go look.
Just go park, take a walk.
Yeah.
But at the very least, and we talked about this with the intern, was even if it's not fully functional, it's meant to be a showpiece, to show people how it would be situated on their land, or how it would work, or what it would take to construct it, or the material, where to go to get the materials. That's another thing Tim's working on. Tim has spoken to the nursery next door, because it's adjacent to the property, and said, listen, if we were to build a bioswale, as I told him, that Becky and I had talked about this, and would you be willing to donate some natives and things like that to put in there as a showcase?
I mean,
and then
we might want to get some stone from another place.
Right. We'll just reference the people that helped us put it together. So the material cost may go down and just be construction and where to place it, the expertise.
Right.
And I spoke to another person who does bio habitats, and that's the name of the company where he's at. I met him in Washington, D.C., but he's up in New Haven, and he works with Save the Sound, and he's another person that he'd be interested in consulting on that as well.
Okay.
So we got some expertise floating around. We just got to put a plan together.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like you're taking over number one.
I don't... I'm in the middle of writing another grant right now, but I was saying...
Well, the sustainable CT grants are really easy to write. I've written a few of them, and they're really easy, and they're easy to get, and they're easy to report on. So, I mean, if that's the route we decide to go. I think we need to first just confirm with Tim that he's willing to do a bioswale there, and I just want to make sure that's all signed off on before I have anyone writing grants.
Yeah.
And then we have to do a GAR grant.
Around town property and things like that.
Unless the town has approved you writing the
grant. But
grant.
they don't have a grant writer anymore, do they?
Terry left.
Because I was going to say, someone could write.
Well, I've always written the grant.
Okay.
But you have to write the GAR first and get it approved by the Board of Selectmen. And if the grant's over a certain amount, you have to get it approved by all three bodies.
There's also a new Long Island Sound study window opening up for...
I don't think we'll get that, because isn't that EJ Communities? Primarily?
No, that's the Restore America's Estuaries.
Oh, that's, okay.
We got along Mill River, Mill River Wetland Committee got a Long Island Sound study C grant, to pay for a grant writer.
Oh.
A grant to pay for a grant writer who helped us get our environmental justice, a grant.
Okay.
So I think it was a $4,000 or $5,000 grant. They paired it. They gave us 2 or 3 names to choose from. We met with them, interviewed them, selected, and he was invaluable in helping.
But that's what you're doing with Bridgeport School System, right?
The Restore America's Estuary grant is the one we're going. Yes, so he helped us.
That's the EJ.
Yes, the environmental justice is us doing the Bridgeport.
Yes, because of Bridgeport.
Yes. But the C grant might be a little more broad because it's around anything. It's affecting the estuary or the Long Island Sound. So you never know. There's green infrastructure projects that they're talking about there. So we can find out the scope of it.
Is there anything that I'm missing that we should have on our list that you think we should be doing? I mean, the other things we could put on are writing newsletters.
Well, the secretary can do that at the direction of the chair.
I know. So far, I've written only 2 of them. We owe another newsletter. I think I'm going to write one about the new 2024-25 plan. All right.
So
I don't have any other new business.
All right.
So,
just to reiterate, I had sent around to everyone the annual Betsy Brown letter about freedom of information and don't have any illegal meetings and everybody be nice to one another.
Oh, actually, I do have 2 other items. Thank you all for approving the POCD comment letter. I did get that out. They were having their meeting tonight. I don't think they were planning on locking the POC down. It's not actually due till the 2026, but I know they were discussing the POCD in tonight's meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I did reiterate our points, and hopefully they will incorporate them into the next draft. And then,
how many from the current draft were incremental to the original one you submitted? Were there only a few points?
Only a couple were incremental. I had to repeat a lot of
No,
them.
I know it, because that's why I'm asking the questions, because you sent a very substantial list the original time, and
virtually none of them.
Virtually none of them were adopted.
Well, the one that was adopted, and I'm not sure if this was adopted because we asked for it or if FBRA asked for it, but they did cross out one thing. There was a phrase at the end of, we will proceed with mitigation programs as they prove financially feasible or something like that. There was some phrase that basically, we all know that if you break the floodplain down into component parts, the BCA for each one will never be financially feasible. But when you add it as an additive, it absolutely is a positive BCA, and it's a 1.7 BCA. So, putting that phrase on virtually ensured that we wouldn't do anything on each of the individual segments, which I think didn't make any sense. So they did cross that off in this draft. So that was good. So they did listen to that. The new incremental I put on was sunny day flooding, which was not in the prior one, which I just think is, Save the Sound had given us a 2040 look at sunny day flooding, and they've done it as a chart that showed, roads that will flood every 30 days. Right now, it's pretty much Penfield, a little bit of Penfield and Fairfield Beach Road. But when you look at 2040 and look at the roads that are going to flood on a regular basis every 30 days, it's half of the beach area. I mean, so that's going to be an issue. When sea level starts to rise, we're going to get much more sunny day flooding, and it's going to be higher sunny day flooding, which could impact safety and emergency vehicles being able to get through. I mean, right now on Fairfield Beach Road, I've had some floods that are 2 feet high, and this is not in a storm. This is wind pushing water in, and what happens is it overflows from the creek. The creeks then get so high because it sort of forces a surge. Water comes in over the low bulkheads because deep does not allow us to build the bulkheads at the height that we used to be able to, and now water physically comes across from the creek right into right across the road and into people's yards. In several places along the way. I mean, it's.
What is the rationale by DEEP for not allowing you to build the bulkheads higher?
They want the water to come in and go out. That is their.
So they don't want to get stuck behind a bulkhead, a
Well,
raised
it wouldn't,
bulkhead.
you'd put a check valve in it. I mean, you'd drain it immediately.
There's technology, it exists.
They want the peninsula to go away.
They do. They say you never should have built there, so shame on you, and you deserve to flood. I mean, they don't say it in those words, but that is in essence there.
Yeah, the most vulnerable section of the state, the term they use.
And the reality is we're not proposing to spend a lot of money to fix the peninsula. I think everyone who lives there has to realize that they have chosen to have a house in an area that can't be protected, and your only protection is elevate your house and let the water come under. But where it gets tricky is when the safety and emergency vehicles get concerned. And if you've got 2 foot of flood and you can't get an emergency vehicle and someone has a heart attack, that's an issue. So you do not have to have sunny day flooding, because there are very easy ways to mitigate it. And I think we should, because that's a safety issue. Anyway, that's it for me. Anything else in new business?
Nope. Prue, you good? You have anything?
I do not.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so the meeting is now adjourned at
8 o'clock.
8:01.
8:01.
Thank you all.
I'll stop the recording.